Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the live stream again from the Northern Affinity and from myself. We are on a LinkedIn page. We're on our Facebook page as well. I know a number of people watch this back, so hope you enjoy the conversation. For everyone who's on live, if you want to ask any questions or any comments, please do put it in the comment box, and we'll try and cover it as we go on today. So today's is going to be something a little bit different. I am joined in this call by both my wife and my father-in-law. Now, one thing about this is we do all run our own small businesses. We all run different businesses as well. We probably quite often asked, various things about that, why we do what we do and how we got here and that kind of thing. And as we know, for a lot of people over the last, however long, it's been challenging times for the last 6 months, and I'm sure will be in the future. So we wanted to kind of talk about the challenges as business owners we've faced and how we've dealt with all that. So I thought before we kind of go into that, it'd probably be good for everyone to introduce themselves. So Gemma, do you want to start?
Sure. So hopefully you can tell the difference between which one is Mike's wife and which one's Mike's father-in-law.
Yeah.
I was told a lot as a child that me and my dad look quite similar. So I'm Gemma. My business, no comment. I'm Gemma. My business is So Contented. We are copywriting and content marketing. I founded the business. It will be just over 3 years ago with my business partner Helen, and Tessa is part of our team as well. So there's 3 of us, and the kind of things we do are content strategy, brand voice, and then anything with the written words. So blog writing, website content, that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah, my name's Ian. Obviously, says on the screen. With my about 2.5 years ago now. It's called In Business. We're a networking, training, support organisation. Our motto is we help people to connect, learn, and grow. And what we mean by that is we help people to make great connections. We help them to learn new skills, to help them with the business and grow, but not only just grow the business, but help them to develop as people as well. So the skills that they get, it helps them to develop personally as well as in the business. And the whole ethos is that we want to help people to collaborate and work together and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's 2.5 years ago now, and it's touch wood, it's going okay.
That's brilliant. Now, one thing I said this call is going to be a little bit different. So I'm normally on these things, if people have seen it before, I normally kind of lead it and be the interviewer, but I'm actually going to hand it over to Ian this time. So Ian, are you okay to take over and kind of start the questions, and we'll kind of take the conversation? But as I mentioned, if anyone's got any questions about the stuff we're talking about, please feel free to fire them our way. So Ian, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, right. So my first question is why did you ask my daughter to marry you? Just kidding. You didn't expect that one, did you, Mike? Sorry. Basically, I suppose what I want to know is, why didn't you two go into business together? What was it that made you decide to do separate things?
Aside from the fact that I would probably have had to remodel the patio by now if we'd gone into business together, and everyone would wonder where Mike was. I think part of it was probably timing. When Mike started being self-employed before I did, I went back to work as in a bank, and I think the timing was not right maybe for us to start a business together. And at the time when I did start my business, I think, Mike, you were still looking for your thing, really. I think I was quite clear on what business I wanted and what I wanted to get from it, but I think you were still looking for that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, time is probably one of the main things. For me, like I said, self-employed 4 and a bit years now, I think it is. You kind of done a couple of different things previously, which, as we all do, we learn lessons and we get better at it, until I probably found what I'm doing now, which is the thing that I do love doing for the past, about 2 years now. So I think timing definitely a big thing. I think as well that we were doing quite different things to start with, and each other's skills probably weren't compatible with what we were doing. That's probably changed now, but would you agree that it just didn't fit, I guess?
Yeah, I do think I actually think we would make really good business partners because we are very different, in a similar way to me and Helen. But equally, I do think we would probably struggle to run a business together. And I mean, Dad, weigh in on this one because you have a business with your wife.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and again, we're different. I like to think I'm the. She's going to hate this. She's sat on the other side of me here. I'm the sort of blue sky thinker. I think, and Tracy, although she comes up with some good ideas and things like that, but she also she's the doer, if you like. She implements the things. She actually does. She does a lot of the donkey work, I think, to make it work. Whereas I have this, well, you know me, Gem, I sort of flip from one thing. I have this brainchild, and then once that's gone, I'm on to the next thing. I seem to have a struggle sometimes containing my enthusiasm for things. But yeah, so it works well. I mean, you know, it does work well that we work together. We're an idea, and I think it's because we're not the same. Probably like you two guys, you're not exactly the same. I think that's what. That works. I think if you're the same, it wouldn't work somehow. So,
how do you feel it works with like your work-life balance? You know, and I mean, I hate that phrase because I don't believe that work-life balance is a thing. Like work is a part of your life, but I do believe in balance. So, do you find that it kind of, you know, takes you time when it shouldn't?
Definitely. I mean, only last night we were discussing something that we're thinking about doing, and Tracy's in the middle of creating something now on the computer that we thought about that we could do. So it does impact. Yeah, I think part of the problem is sometimes it's difficult to get a work-life balance. It's what we both love the business, what we do. So we talk about it. I suppose it's like you two guys. You must do the same. You never really switch off. Mm-hmm. We try and exercise, go for walks and stuff like that. But I think it's always in the back of our minds. I think that we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, John.
I think Mike more so than me, actually, because I have a business partner that I can talk things through with at work and in a work environment. And, you know, I know for Helen and I that even when we get together socially, we can't help but talk about the business because we love it. We love what we do and we're excited. But we have that sounding board within the business, whereas Mike is different to you and I because we have somebody else to talk to about the business, whereas Mike, as a, you know, the solo director, he tends to talk to me about it.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction actually, is that so probably one of the things that our businesses differ, Gemma, is our business models. Mine's very much set up for outsourcing, really. That's kind of the way I work with other people, and it's a very much an outsourced model. Whereas yourself, obviously, as well as Helen, you're more employed people. So you have people who are probably more permanently in the business and could talk about that, whereas I don't. So it's probably a big difference between the two things that we do.
I know that's funny. I know that you both sort of started off in banking, the banking scenario and stuff like that, and the finance. But it seems to me you've gone in very different paths now. You've gone totally in different directions to banking, I would say. How did that come about? What happened? What made you decide to go down the routes you went? Gemma, did you always have a love of copywriting and things like that and words? And Mike, were you always interested in doing what you do on the Northern Affinity stuff, where you get people, you know, to work and collaborate and set up things like that? Is that something that you purposely went down that route, or did it just evolve? Anyone?
Well, for me, no, it wasn't intentional. I guess going back to what we mentioned earlier about my experience, I kind of had a couple of other businesses before that I'd run and had, and they were doing okay, but I didn't love what I was doing. Didn't really get me going any day. But from that, I picked up kind of experiences, and I kind of looked at the way I was trying to build a business and just felt like there was something missing from what I needed. And And that kind of, I had the idea for what is now the Northern Affinity, as Gemma will know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right at the early stages of starting my own business, but didn't really know what to do and how to kind of, I guess, pull that together. So my experience has brought me to that. I don't think I could have done what I do now, coming straight out of the corporate life at all. I needed to have done what I've done before, so it was an absolute necessity. So I think for me, it was more, like I said, born out of frustrations, experiences, and kind of built a general idea from there. And so, I usually quite rightly said, doing something completely different to corporate world and banking and finance and that kind of thing.
I think for you as well, Mike, if you've also got, I think you've started now doing the thing that was the thing you were good at within the other jobs and businesses that you've had, and that's where that's been born from. I think you were trying to find a way to move that skill from within whatever it was before into the business that you wanted to run. I know when Mike used to be a commercial finance broker, and I remember during that period, the thing that you were good at was the people and like people skills, meeting people, connecting people, understanding the business, really getting to know the business. You've always had something about you, I think, that you've been good at running a business. I always knew you would be very good running your own business, and I think that's you finally got to the thing. You've got all the things that you're good at and all the things that you love doing finally together in one place, I think.
I agree. I mean, I think for me, the running of a business is what I enjoy the most about it. The kind of the ideas and the taking it forward. As you both know from my background of being brought up in a environment of a business, and my dad and various other things, of growing a business and taking it forward, and I've always been around that environment. It's very much it's normal to me. I don't know, for a lot of people, taking a step into self-employed feels like a huge step, and I think quite often that is because they don't, or previously maybe didn't have people around them that did that. And for me, that wasn't ever an issue, and I kind of grown up in a running a business world, so that was kind of always my thing, as you quite rightly said, I think, Jim.
So what about you, Jim? So how did you manage to get into the So Contented business? What was it that led you in that direction from what you did before?
Well, I've gone all over the place, haven't I, really?
I know
that. You might say it's taken me a while to find my thing as well. To be honest, I actually think I did suit the corporate life, definitely more so than Mike. For those of you that don't know, Mike and I actually did work for the same bank, and that's where we met. And again, to go back to what we were saying about like work-life balance, Mike and I did used to talk about work when we were at home, because you can't help it. But yeah, I think it was timing. So Helen and I originally met at NCT classes, actually, when we were both pregnant with our children, and it became one of those conversations where we'd said, we're the people that everyone always comes to for advice on writing, and do you think this sounds right, and is this the way that I should be saying this? And we'd kind of had that almost a casual, we should start a business together, kind of not really thinking anything of it. And then I guess timing at the bank for me, I was working in private banking at that point, and a competitor opened up and took quite a lot of the staff from the office, and I'd been gunning for my next promotion, and it was quite apparent then at that point that they were going to start, I don't want to say panic recruiting, but they were going to start trying to fill experienced people into the roles that they needed, rather than recruiting from within and having to train people, which I get. So I had to make that decision there. I think at the time, I think you'd been offered you were self-employed and had been offered a contract, hadn't you? And it was going to be a full-time contract. And while I was at work, Mike was actually the one that was looking after Ben and taking him to nursery on the days that he was in nursery. So we'd kind of come to this crossroads of, okay, so I either wait it out at the bank, and that's going to be difficult for for the childcare situation with Ben, because Mike is going to start this contract, or I have to move and go to this other competitor and, you know, maybe apply for a job there, but equally I would be doing the same thing again, or now's the time to take this as an opportunity and set up a business. So I was pretty much rang Helen and I was like, so I've just handed my notice in. Do you want to start that business that we talked about? And she was a bit like, and yeah, that's how it started.
We mentioned earlier, didn't we, Gemma? Ian mentioned about how different we are and are complementary, and that's kind of a very a live example of it. So for myself, that kind of decision, I would let's just say I would think about it for a fairly long time and consider all scenarios and situations, whereas Gemma would be a little bit more, shall I say, proactive and be kind, or maybe go on the opposite and say gun ho. But that's kind of an example of that.
I mean,
yeah, I'm not an overthinker. Let's put it that way.
No, I don't know where you get that from. I think one of the things I know sort of the answer to this one, Gemma. I know Gemma's always been extremely competitive. How do you compare businesses? Do you compete with each other? Is there any sort of how can I put this, angst at any point? You know, one's trying to outdo the other one. How does that work?
From my perspective, no, we don't. But in some ways, we kind of do. So I don't think, personally, I don't look at it and see that I need to have a more successful business than Mike. I mean, we won't get into whether or not I do, but we'll discuss that another time. And Mike's success is my success, and I would hope that Mike feels the same, like the other way around. And there is a lot of, you know, interlink with our businesses and the things that we do and the way that we work. I would say the competition is probably for time. It's kind of a whose time is more important, who gets to prioritize their work time, especially because we have to balance childcare as well. Now, you know, Ben is our little boy and he's in school, so it's definitely not that. And even when he was really little, he was in nursery, so it's not, you know, it's not a massive struggle. But ultimately one of us has to do the school run. Sometimes we have to work on weekends, so it's like who gets that priority of that time when we're both very busy in our businesses. That's where the competition for me, I think, is. Whereas, you know, sometimes we get into that whole what makes you think your time is more important than my time kind of discussion.
And I suppose that's where Tracy and I are different, because we work together. It's one business, so we don't actually have any competition. We don't have any competition. We don't actually have any competition. I thought I'd better just check, but we don't. No, so it's different, I suppose.
Yeah, I think for me, I do agree with you. I mean, luckily I know there is no competition, so so that's all right. But no, I mean the thing about our businesses as well as they are separate businesses, they do complement each other as well. I think you know, we're both going through actually at the moment quite a lot in terms of growth and various things in places, but by Northern Affinity growing, that helps Gemma, and by Gemma's business growing, it helps me as well. We're both, so there's a degree of the fact that by helping each other, that kind of takes that away a little bit, as well as obviously the personal element of that. If either of us grow a very successful big business, then obviously both of us will bear the fruits of that. But I guess the more they will also complement each other from a business point of view as well. Would you agree with that, Jen?
Yeah, I agree. And I guess we'll have to see what the future brings in terms of growth and who gets to take the prize home. But I'm not competitive.
No, you're not at all. Looking back over the last year, which has been an interesting year, what sort of impact has that had on your businesses? Has it made you reevaluate what you do, work differently? Is there something you've done to accommodate the current situation? What is it that you've done, if you have, if anything?
Yeah, what I'd like to say on there is obviously we're in a slightly different situation now. Like Gemma mentioned, obviously the little boys at school. So whilst the world is not normal at the moment, we know, I guess our situation is no different to it would be if coronavirus wasn't a thing, really. It's still the same as that. So we are, we share in terms of things like Gemma said, the school run. It's pretty much evenly split between us, and we just have a way of working, so we know that we can kind of with each other's diaries and things like that, who's doing what. The biggest challenge, I guess, was the lockdown period from mid-March till June. Yeah, so about a 10-week period or so there. We didn't have school. We didn't have. We couldn't fob off onto grandparents.
Although you tried your best.
Yeah, we tried his best, but we couldn't.
We tried to get him to move in, I think, but that wasn't well received. So.
We basically just had to split as day most days, didn't we, Jen? As working day was from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. and more often than not, I did the morning in terms of the work, and I'd work from 6 a.m. till roughly lunchtime. We'd have quick lunch together, and then Gemma would work the rest of the afternoon and into the evening, and then we'd both do bits on an evening once the little one was in bed, and bits on weekend and things like that. Whilst 6 hours a day probably wouldn't be as much as we do now, as we know, there's a lot of less other things going on because there was no travelling and there's no meetings and all that kind of thing at the time. So actually work time, I'd say it wasn't too different, I guess, in terms of us working hours. It was a challenge because you felt like you had to really pedal very fast during those 6 hours that you got to work. You couldn't kind of ease yourself into the day, but we got a bit getting used to it first, I'd say. But then, we managed, I guess. Probably a better situation. We were obviously more fortunate than a lot of other people who maybe, if you're self-employed and you got a partner who was at work full time, and they were still working, and you had to take over the homeschooling, that would have been big impact. At least we were in a fortunate position we could share it.
Yeah, I think particularly in that period, it was a bit. It kind of almost felt a little bit relentless in some ways, because it wasn't that the childcare situation was that hard, really. It was that it was 7 days a week doing the same thing inside. So I think we found the best balance that we could. I think we're lucky that we had a very laid back child. Don't know where he gets that from. And I think you're right. I think we were in a very lucky situation with two businesses where we could work from home. I know for me and Helen and Tessa, it wasn't really a huge upheaval to have to work from home, because a lot of the things that we do it's on cloud-based software. It was okay. We didn't really need that physical premises, so we didn't have that to also deal with. It was relatively easy for us to be able to do that. The homeschooling thing was not easy because Ben had zero interest in doing it when he was at home. So we kind of had to just draw that line somewhere, didn't we? And said, if he doesn't want to do it, why stress ourselves out over it and stress him out as well? And now that he's back in school, it appears to have had minimal impact, because the school pretty much said they have such a long school holiday that kids have a massive knowledge fade over the school holidays anyway, so they're kind of used to dealing with that when they come back in September. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to do it again. But it was okay. It was hard, but it was okay. I mean, Dad, what was your experience of having, your wife and business partner and just the two of you all the time?
Well,
it was wonderful.
If I'm honest, we quite enjoyed lockdown. We had to adapt the business model, obviously, like a lot of other people have.
You had to probably do it more, though, didn't you, Ian? I think I know my business is definitely we had to adapt, but a lot of the stuff was kind of very, very similar. And obviously Gemma's, in terms of how he worked, was very, very similar. But for you, it was a big difference because it's a face-to-face related business.
The problem we had, I think, it was quite fortunate, really, that the week before Boris announced the first lockdown, we were due to have a guest speaker, a lady as a guest speaker on that we have on one of our events, and she rang, I think it was the night before or the day before, and said, actually, I think I might have it. I don't think she did, but everybody was a bit jittery at that point. And I think we then thought, well, hang on a minute, other people might be getting a bit jittery about meeting face to face. So I think we quickly contacted everyone and said, look, this is what we think of doing. We're thinking of using the Zoom stuff to go online, and we managed to get around everyone, and we managed to get it going. Now, obviously, the first 2 or 3 times it was a bit haphazard. We hadn't quite developed what we were going to be doing. We'd never really used Zoom before, and I think it was a bit of a shock. But to be fair, it's working out really well. I mean, it's had an impact. And don't get me wrong, we both love I love face-to-face networking. I like to meet people in real life, but it's also opened up another opportunity or avenue for our business as well. So we've got another little thing there we can offer people, which and so far everyone seems to be enjoying what we do. So it's worked out quite well. I know a lot of people must have struggled, and I feel so sorry for them. But we've been quite fortunate that we've had the technology. If it had been 10 years ago or 15 years ago, well, we'd have been doomed, I think. So,
Isn't it interesting how so many? It's interesting this on the kind of technology side of things. So, just before this video, we've had someone come to this office to look around putting some proper video conferencing equipment in. Anyway, he's just been telling me, like, for the years he's all been businesses, look at you, especially businesses, overseas clients or offices. But he says they're now putting them in churches, and pubs are putting them in, and various other things. And it's amazing how in 6 months, how not just what you may say traditionally would have used this type of technology, people have just adapted, and it's become part of us life as well as the business side of things as well.
It's funny how you think, for a long time, people say, oh, more people are going to be working from home and stuff like that. And it's almost not been resisted, but it's been put on the back burner. And now suddenly everybody's being forced into it to some degree. And suddenly people think, hang on a minute, this home working is not too bad. Although I do think the downsides to it, because I think a lot of people miss the office environment, the interaction as well. So it's a double-edged coin, I think, or double-edged. So I think you've got to be a bit careful. But I think it's shown that people can work from home, that it is possible with the technology that we've got. So it's rushed everything along, I think, by 2 or 3 years, nothing else. But it's not good for people who can't rely on the technology, unfortunately.
Funnily enough, Fliss Lee is a brand consultant, and she emails out like a trend report. And I remember very close to the start of lockdown, she sent out a trend report that was talking about acceleration of trends and how things that had been quite slow to be adopted were suddenly being adopted very quickly. So that lockdown had brought about this real change in the pace at which we are accepting the use of technology in the workplace, that we're accepting home working and flexible working as being standard. And I think she's absolutely been proven to be correct there with that. And I think Mike also makes quite a good point about this, where we talk a lot about home working, and home working is not really what most of us want. We want flexible working, we want remote working, we want to be able to go to a meeting somewhere, and then instead of having to come back to an office to prove that we're being productive, maybe we do go home because that's closer, or maybe we sit in a cafe and work there. And it's kind of about getting the most out of you in your time as an employer, as a business owner, rather than being that your physical presence is what equates to your productivity.
We've had two ends of the extreme, really. Like traditionally, everybody spends all morning and all evening commuting, sat in traffic, and spending a lot of time. Whereas, and then obviously the last, definitely for 3 months and quite a lot for the last 6 months as well, is people are then all of a sudden stuck at home constantly. And those two things are the two ends of the extreme. Actually, what most people, Gemma quite rightly said, is they want something in between. They want the option to work in the office sometimes. They want to be able to work from home sometimes. They want to be able to work in a cafe sometimes. Whatever it might be, they just want those options. And it's kind of both ends of the extreme. And maybe one of the good things that will come out of all this is we will find a middle ground. That's what I hope anyway.
Yeah,
I think it's that whole presence does not equal productivity. It's definitely something we had to put up with in the bank, isn't it, Mike? Because it was very much expected that you were in the office at all times, and if you weren't, you weren't working. Mike and I were both very lucky with the direct managers, line managers that we had. I think. I remember when you were a business manager, I know your line manager fought quite hard for you to be able to do remote working because you're covering several branches. I don't think that ever got approved though, did it? But I know for me, particularly in the private bank, there was still an attitude of you had to be at your desk or you weren't doing productive work, that you had to be at your desk before 9 and finish at after 5. If you didn't start early and you didn't stay late, you weren't good at your job.
And do you think that's a lack? Do you think that's a lack of trust though on the management side of things? A lack of, well, they're employees, but we don't really trust them. I think that often is the case. That it's well, okay, yeah, we know they're there, whether they're being productive or not, but we know they're there. We don't trust what they're doing elsewhere, and I think that's a bit of a sad reflection on things as well. Sometimes it's that general lack of trust, and and people generally are trustworthy, I think, on the whole.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I think part of it is a lack of trust, and I think part of it is a misconception of what commitment is and the commitment that people expect you to show in a corporate business about your job. That whole if you leave at 5 o'clock, you're not committed to your job. Well, no, you're only paying me till 5 o'clock, and I'm effective. I get done what I need to get done within my working hours. And I know that was quite a big deal for some people in that environment, that you stayed beyond 5 o'clock to prove that you were dedicated to that job.
You might not be doing anything, but yeah, I know.
Well, it probably means you'd faffed around all day through the day and not got anything done. And then it comes to 5 o'clock and you think, oh, I'd better stay for another hour because I've not achieved what I need to achieve today. And again, to name drop this again, we were talking about being in creative roles on this whole concept of working 9 to 5. You cannot be creative 9 to 5. It's not easy. I know there are days when we're massively on the struggle bus, like me and Helen and Tessa will sit sometimes and just say, I cannot write this. I've got no inspiration for this at this moment. It's difficult to put yourself in that box of I need to do this between these hours. And again, that's coming back to that flexibility. I think if you're in any kind of role where you need to be able to think and come up with ideas, you kind of need that freedom to be able to go do something different and come back to it later on when that inspiration does come. If you're out painting your fence or whatever it is, something that, and I know that for Mike, because I always get texts from him when he's in the gym saying, oh, I've just had this idea, and it's because you've got your mind is on something else, so your creativity can just appear, I think.
Yeah, and I got a text from Mike asking to marry you as well, by the way, Gemma. Did I tell you that?
Yes. And did I tell you that I saw your response that said,
right. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. Also, laugh out loud. Cheers. I mean, what?
I was a bit
moving on. We've had quite a few comments and questions from maybe comments from people, which is fantastic. Firstly, I see Karen there. So obviously this video has reminded us she needs to contact you, Jen. So that's a good thing.
Hi, Karen.
I see Stuart has mentioned about a comment you made, Gemma, about that work-life balance thing. It's about getting things done and not so much about how long you spend doing it as well. I think it's a really important point. Linda as well. Thank you for that. So it's taken so many managers a long time to realize that they can spot people working from home. Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think it's the lack of trust traditionally. Hopefully this last 6 months have proved people can do it well as well if they're doing it. And I can see as well Karen's agreed about the trust side of things. So many businesses unfortunately don't trust people to work from home or haven't done traditionally. My argument to that has always been, well, if you don't trust them, you're not recruiting the right people. That's maybe something wrong with your recruitment process, but I guess that's a different point. But thank you everyone for all the comments and questions and things like that. And I think that it's been really good. So I really appreciate that. I thought we'd kind of finish this video, Gemma, and if it's okay with you, by just talking a little bit about if there's maybe people who either have thought about setting up their own business, because obviously 3 of us who have done that, what advice, what tips, would you say, yep, go for it or not? Just kind of a bit of around the table, just kind of talk about that for, like I said, for anyone's just kind of the early stages of the business as well. So Gem, do you want to start?
Yeah. So I would say, unsurprisingly, yeah, just do it. I think, as with most things in life, you don't know what you don't know. Honestly, running a business is not for everyone, and that's fine. I think some people are very good at what they do, but not necessarily good at running a business and may not like doing it. Equally, on the flip side, I think some people, I think Mike, you're an example of this. I think they are just good at running a business. But I think you don't know until you try. I think you can never be fully prepared for anything. And I think until you try it and see what happens, you just don't know. So if anybody is thinking of starting a business, my advice would be go for it. Don't wait for perfection, because it will never happen. Don't wait to have the perfect moment, because it will never happen. Don't wait for everything to be done and set up and ready, so you're going to launch a totally finished business that's absolutely perfect and you know exactly what you're going to offer and who it's for. It will never happen. Even once your business is up and running, we're 3 years in and we're still evolving and changing and doing things differently. So I would say just go for it. Just get yourself out there, because as they say, you get the result that you want or you get the lesson that you need.
Yeah. What about you, Ian?
Well, for me, I spent many years being employed, and I suppose it's a regret, as Gemma said, that I didn't do something earlier. I was forced into it through redundancy, and you come to the point and think, oh my goodness, what am I going to do now? I've done this for that many years. That's all I know. But you'd be amazed how many skills you pick up by being employed. I remember I've all sorts of things that you think you don't know about, that you do know about, that you dismiss because you've been in one particular trade or industry. And you've got so many skills that are available that you can help other people with as well. You get so much knowledge and things like that. So like Gemma said, really echoing what she said, don't be afraid of doing it. I wish I'd have done it 20 years ago. I don't know what I would have done, but I wish I'd have done something 20 years ago, because it's far more rewarding and fulfilling working for yourself. Tracy and I are really enjoying what we're doing now. We're helping. You feel like you're doing something of worth rather than just sat at a desk or wherever, if you like, I suppose, making money for someone else in effect, and just going through the motions. I think what you do, you need to have a go. I suppose if it doesn't work, what's the worst thing that can happen? Potentially, you might get yourself a job and become employed again. But at least give it a try. Don't wait too long. Don't leave it as long as I have. I'm now 27, and I wish I'd have done it years ago. Please don't wait. Just get out there and do it. Just try it. You never know. You'll know far more than you think, and you'll have a lot to offer, I'm sure, if you just give it a go.
I think just to bring a little bit of balance to that as well. Obviously, my dad is quite a bit older than me, but I am glad in many ways that I did work. That I had a corporate job, that I worked in the bank. Despite what I said earlier about the whole productivity and the trust thing, actually I did love it. I genuinely did love my time in that bank with the people that I worked with, in every job that I had, in that corporate setting. And I learned a lot from it. And I know that I've learned a lot of things that I have carried with me into business that I'm really grateful for. So I think,
oh yeah, definitely.
No regrets, you know.
Yeah, same for me. I learned a lot from my previous employers, courses and things that they put me on, and love the people I worked with. But I think I just feel I could have done so much more, I think. But I'm certainly, I'm not unhappy with the people who employed me. It was just it was my own procrastination, I think, and fear of doing something. Don't be afraid, just do it. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I learned a lot from my previous company and everything else. That's good. Sorry, Gemma.
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, for me, actually, I was going to say something, and Linda actually has commented and mentioned something that's very relevant. I think it's not about doing what you love all day. There's much more involved. Completely agree with that. Get people around you to support and help. That was going to be kind of the thing for me. Actually, I was going to mention was the importance of who is around you. And that can mean a few different things as well. It doesn't. It can be either from a skills point of view, people around you who can do stuff that you either can't do or don't want to do, but also people who motivate you, that inspire you as well. That want maybe values is very important, I believe, as well. So people with similar values to you, I think, is absolutely key. And you can kind of we all have bad days, we all have good days, we all think, what's the point some days? I think anybody who's run a business, well, anybody probably in general has thought that at a certain point, but having that good group of people around you makes such a difference. I'm very lucky, and I know Ian the same, is that the nature of our businesses, we are around people who generally entrepreneurial people are really, really positive people, are really, even when it was all kind of kicking off in March time, there's still people were looking for opportunities, looking for what they could take for this, what chance it give them to improve their business, how they could change, and that's the attitude that people had, and that rubs off on you. I've seen Glenn has made a really good point about there's a whole heap of support. He's absolutely right, and probably I'm sure Glenn probably agrees with me. No time more than now, actually, for businesses over the last 6 months. Whilst huge challenges, we all know that there's been all sorts of opportunities there. Whether it's from, my background in commercial finance, I'm sure people agree with me. There'll never be a cheaper time to lend money right now. But there's also, things like grants and all sorts of stuff out there for people, businesses now, and there's probably going to be more to come as well. So it's as good a time as ever. The only other thing I would always mention to people as well is make sure you're learning all the time. Do something to improve every single day. Now, I got that habit quite recently, but I've got back into it of listening to something that improves me in the car when I'm driving. I know we're obviously probably doing less driving at the moment, most of us, but the school run, I'll do 45 minutes or so most days in my car. That's a great opportunity to learn, and you can get through pretty much an audiobook a week, something like that, doing that. It's kind of a choice that you make if you want to set your own business, that if you do things like that, you just can make that, I guess, the 1%ers. We hear about the 1% in sport a lot. I think it's important in business as well. So that would be kind of a bit of advice from me, because I know how recently I've kind of got back into that habit. It's really helped me, not just from a knowledge point of view, but a motivation point of view as well. I think when you're kind of learning, you feel motivated. Don't know about you guys as well, but that's definitely my experience.
Yeah, definitely. I'm big into self-development. I hate getting in the car if I can't listen to something, because I feel like I've wasted my time. And I noticed a big difference in lockdown, because we weren't driving anywhere, and I suddenly went from soaking up loads of audiobooks and podcasts and all kinds of things to just nothing, and I did feel that. So that's one thing that I'm really grateful to have back again, to have that time of peace with no one in the car with me, and I can just listen and learn.
Definitely learning, acquiring knowledge, new skills in your business, finding out things. Like you said earlier, Gemma, you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of things to running a business when you first start, think, oh, I need an accountant, but there's lots of things you need to know. It's not just an accountant you need to know how to market, you need to know about your branding, about social media, all the other things that go to running a good business. You need to acquire those skills, and you need to, like Mike rightly said, you need to be with people who can help you develop those things as well, which is really good. Right
then, well, thank you. I know we've been on this video a little bit longer than we anticipated. I mean, obviously, I'd like to thank you both for coming on it, but we've had loads and loads of comments and stuff like that, which is fantastic. And I know, following on from my last point, I see Karen there has mentioned all sorts of different opportunities out there for businesses. So I would advise anyone to kind of look into that. A nice little bit of advice there from Linda. Take a walk, listen to podcasts, audiobooks. Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of probably do that, as Gemma knows, when I go out running. I listen to my podcasts and audiobooks and stuff then. That's my time. It's a great time. So I see it as any opportunity to do that, kind of following on from the last point. But yeah, so thank you both of you for coming on. Thank you for everyone for contributing. We've had loads of great comments and everything like that. Yeah, so thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.